Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, may I have your attention, please? It's actually Brock Bowen, the Lifetarian. I'm here to introduce someone that's very special, important to me in my life, made a massive impact in my life. When people ask me who was, one person that made a huge dent in your universe, Peter Hagerty. Often refer to you, mate, and it's exciting to have you here on the show. For those that don't know Peter, Peter does a lot of different elements, but really focuses on people's purpose. He does that through Genuine University and also another program that's his flagship, which is called Make Money Doing What You Love. So it's great to have you here today, record an interview together. And we've done a lot of different things together, and excited to bring you here onto the Lifetarian channel, and love to hear more about what you're up to. So where are you right now?
I am living in the Hunter Valley.
Awesome.
And we're on a property we've got some horses and dogs and stuff. My partner, Maria, that's where I'm at awesome. Physically. Where I'm at with Genuine University is we're doing really well. We've got a program called Make Money Doing What You Love, which I've been working on that stuff for decades.
Yeah.
And I've just this year been putting it down into a digital format so that people can access it and listen to it at their own leisure and work through the projects and so on.
Awesome.
So that's the nutshell. What else do you want to know, Brock? I know you know a lot about me, so I'm not sure what to talk about. So.
I'm going to go on a whole lot of different sections. But just to let the guys know too, I was at a point in my life when Peter showed up where I'd gotten to that point, and you guys might be there too, where I was there and I'd done the personal development, done the goal setting. I was kind of good at it. I'd get myself in a peak state. I could make my move. I could go, rah, do all that sort of stuff. But inside, I wasn't fulfilled. And at that point in my life, I would put my head on the pillow every night. I'd go, what is my purpose? There has to be more than this, because if there isn't, what's the fucking point? That was kind of where I got to. And I remember just soon after that period, you showed up in my life. A friend Lee had introduced us somehow, and just saw something. He goes, you need to check this out. Lee is a guy I hadn't even met, and ended up meeting him somehow through someone else. Someone had forwarded an email, and someone else had forwarded an email. Next thing I was at your workshop. And you had a chapter in your life where you're actually doing it tough, to be honest. You're going through a big life transition. Would be an understatement. Doing it tough in some ways. And the thing is, you didn't shy away from doing what was most important to you in that moment, which is something I have a lot of respect for. So I want to talk about those chapters, because we can all go out and we can build and be structured in the world. We can talk about what it means to be a man and the masculine energy, and go out and create a lot of stuff. But then you come back and refine it into something that's more purposeful. And I want to talk about that, because there's going to be men and women watching. But I want to talk about, those chapters where you feel like you're the king of the world. And then life, all of a sudden, it seems to turn against you somewhat. But it actually ends up being the best thing ever.
When you said that at that point I was doing it tough, I've got to be honest, I'm not sure which point you mean, because we go through certain parts of our life, and then we move on to the next thing, and we have a toughness of one sort or another. I'm not sure whether I worked with you prior to, we did a very big government project with long-term unemployed people. Did we work together prior to that? It's actually, the timelines are a bit of a blur, because you and I
just finished that project. You just finished that project. Right. You married, you're broken up. Another few different things that happened. You've gone from having a lot of cash to not much, probably minus a lot of cash. Yeah. And
so basically, I had a situation where I was working with two business partners, and we're looking to create something for long-term unemployed people and change the way that long-term unemployed people were treated in this country, in Australia. And one of the business partners decided to pull out and pull every piece of capital with him, and we ended up, in quite a bit of debt, and then still went forward, created the project, and within 3 months we'll bring in $80,000 a month from that project.
Nice.
Just because we're willing to eat baked beans on toast for most meals, for a few months. I remember at one point I was living in Neutral Bay, so I had a very nice place where I was living, but that was about all I had. And I had to walk about 8 kilometers to go to a business meeting. And I walked across the Harbour Bridge in Sydney, which is quite a walk on its own. And this is, but I was just thinking, like, I haven't eaten for 3 days. I'm going to this business meeting. I've got to close this deal. How am I going to do this? And I just went, some people commit suicide here, and I'm not even thinking about that. All I'm thinking about is the deal. And then I closed the deal, and we were quite a few $100,000 richer after that. And then I decided I'm going to go and spend the last $5 eating something before I walked back across the bridge, because I didn't have money for bus fare. And then we went and changed the lives of hundreds of people across the country. And, you know, for a long time there, I had people walking up to me on a regular basis saying, you know, my life is completely different. I don't think I would even be alive if I hadn't done that program that was government sponsored and so on. And then after that, I think you know, working 80 to 120 hours a week for years kind of took its toll on me, and ended up quite exhausted and retired to the country because I didn't have a choice, and found all sorts of meaningful life lessons from there. And not only did I learn a lot of life lessons, but everything seemed to start coming together, and my ability to get results with people that I was coaching just seemed to go up and up and up, regardless of the fact I felt I was doing less and less for them. So I was kind of, I don't know what happened. But, yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question, or if you want to know about that.
Oh, it fascinates me too, because that element, so many times we think that results always comes from massive action. It's kind of what we've been taught in terms of the world. And then there seems to be different levels of truth at different points of consciousness, which seem to exist. And I would be curious, is it the level of purpose? Is it the level of you're now starting to orchestrate things at a different level? And
I think it's humility that really makes the big difference. Being able to be focused on something, but not focused in a rigid way, focused in a way that is kind of soft. It's like holding your goal softly, but without being relenting in what your attention is on.
Yeah, sure.
And that's a pretty difficult medium to strike.
Cool. So let's talk someone through it. Say right now someone wanted to create X. Let's just say someone's right now in a place in their life they don't feel fulfilled, kind of like where I was, where I met you. Had what a lot of people thought was a great job, didn't fulfill me. When I actually left that work, I got to the point after we'd started working together, actually, they said to me, the CEO of the company said to me, Brock, we love you. You're like part of the family. That was one side of the sandwich. The meat was in the middle where, love you, but we need you to be a little less Brock.
I remember you saying that.
And that's the thing, you know, when you find that level of purpose, it's what I come in now. Like, so many people are told to be a little less themselves. And they're told to go and, you know, sell them what they want, give them what they need. They're told to kind of fit themselves in a box so that the world can understand them. Whereas I've seen you doing the opposite, where you open up your whole life, where you're actually being seen authentically. You're not hiding the different things. A lot of the speakers I used to see this is how they show themselves on stage, but on behind the scenes, they're completely different. And I believe you were one of the first people I'd actually seen that demonstrated in, which was exciting to me because that's what I wanted to be. But I hadn't never seen anyone brave enough to do it before. And it seems to be in this last few chapters, all of a sudden there's more and more people coming into the limelight. You know, on that show, The Biggest Loser, all of a sudden the lady that was kind of faking it till she make it, she's been kicked off, Michelle Bridges. And, you know, now there's a new woman, Lydia, that coming through so much more authentic. So on our end.
Well, I think, you know, it's so much harder to hide things these days as well. You know, social media and so on, everything gets out there. I mean, you hear about this, was it a Penthouse or a Playboy model who took a photo of somebody in a dressing room and was shaming her and all of that. And I mean, to me, that's a deficiency of character, which was hidden behind beauty. But, you know, should she be as punished as she was? I don't know, but certainly it's just harder to hide that sort of thing. I always found that being inauthentic was really difficult for me. I couldn't really do it. So I was authentic because I just don't seem to have the bones to pretend too much. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm totally authentic. I'm still uncovering layers of myself, and I still have my own things that I believe, which aren't really, you know, totally authentic. But, you know, it's a journey. But I think what you might be referring to is that I don't pretend that I've arrived and that I've got all the answers. That's usually what differentiates what I do, because I find that if I allow myself to be seen as a human being and to not be perfect, then I can get people that I work with to explore the parts of themselves which are supposedly imperfect, and then find the perfection in it. Find the treasure that's beneath the wound that they think that they have to hide from the world. And it's, you know, ways, you know, what is the most screwed up about you? And I don't necessarily use such polite terms, but what's the most screwed up about you is where your gift lies. And so, that's I found that repeatedly, and that's how I was able to work with hundreds of long-term unemployed people and get them to look at where they were screwed up and how, they thought all these horrible things about themselves, and find where that was a huge gift.
Yeah, I like that.
Find where their obsession with numbers meant that, hang on, you don't have to be an artist like your artist family tells you. You can actually be an accountant. If that's your dream, be an accountant. And they're like, but hang on, that's not an inspiring dream. And I'm like, but it is an inspiring dream for you.
Yeah.
This is your dream, be an accountant.
Yeah, I like that.
There's a lot of accountants out there who don't like it. But there are other people who are like, I love numbers. I love making it balanced up. I love, being able to do things that other people in the business can't do, and I love knowing exactly where the business is, and so on. I had two people sitting next to each other in a course that I ran. One, this story, one was like saying that he worked in a nightclub and he couldn't stand it. He just wanted to work on computers, and and can't stand all these drunk yobos, which is yobo is an Australian term for a lace all the time. And then there's a guy sitting next to him, and we go, well, what are you doing? What would you rather do? And he says, well, I spend all my day stuck working on, and he swore, effing computers, and I'd rather be out enjoying myself with people, even if I have to be doing a job. And I'm like, well, I just literally said, okay, we're just going to do a metaphorical exercise. You two swap chairs.
Nice.
And I know it doesn't mean that you're now in a new job, but if you're swapping positions in your mind and metaphorically in this program, and they both just started exploring those careers, and they actually spent a lot of time talking to each other, finding out about the jobs they were doing, and then they didn't necessarily swap exactly the job, but they certainly swapped each other's careers for each other.
I like it.
So it's about being in the right place without the judgments about what has to be inspiring, or I can't do this because it won't make money, or what, guess what? You can figure out how to make the money if you're determined enough. If you're on purpose, that's not going to leave you. So, pardon me, you've got me on my hobby horse.
Yeah, it's fun.
I don't want to take over. I was told that when I get interviewed, I just start taking over. So.
You can take over as much as you want, man. I'll drill you if I need to. It's cool. So that thing is, I want to get onto purpose now. That thing is, around purpose. A lot of people are like, what is my purpose? I was doing that to a degree, and now I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm like, what if everything's purposeful? What if everything's leading me towards my divine purpose? And so many times I think we think about it, it's a particular form, like an accountant or a coach or a mentor. Now I'm kind of bringing it back to going, I'm a human being. What would I love to create now? Keeping it as simple as possible. Some of the greatest minds, like Leonardo da Vinci, define themselves as a human being, not their particular skill sets or their careers. They had multiple careers. They had inspired creativity in so many areas. So what are some of the clues that you would share with people right now? They're going through that thing where they're in a shit job or a shit business. We can swear on the show if you want to swear. It's all good. You don't need to.
Well, you brought up a really good point there, that you've stopped looking for the one thing that defines your purpose, because there's a theme. I spent about 20 hours last week reading on the internet for stuff about purpose material and all of this. I've just created a course called Discover Your Purpose, partly because I couldn't find anything that was really good out there.
Nice.
And I was, as you know, and as everybody else might need to know, I read very, very fast. It's one of the things that I did when I was 18. I learned how to read extremely quickly, like about 75 times faster than the average person. I'm not that fast now, but I'm still very fast. So I spent 20 hours reading about 5 times faster than most people, going through this stuff. And I really didn't find much that was great. So I created the Discover Your Purpose course. That's something you can just go to the website and grab.
Yeah.
But one thing that I found that was really useful is this concept. When you want to discover your purpose, you break up with the one. And there's a great page, if you look for, the 7 questions that you can ask to discover your purpose. It's not my page, but that was one of the ones that I found that was really good. And it said, break up with the one, the idea that you have one singular purpose. Yeah. And I believe that you do actually have one purpose, but it expresses in like a multitude of ways. And if you're only fixated on one way of expressing a purpose, all these other ways are screwed up. It's like breaking all your fingers, you know. You're screwing yourself up. You can express your purpose in a multitude of different ways. And certainly you're a great example of that, you know, like be less Brock. It's like, oh, let's break the ways I express myself. Screw that. You know, so you've been brave, you've gone out and you've done it. Maybe according to some people, you're too adventurous. Why? What's their idea of what you're supposed to do? What has that got anything to do with? Nothing. If you want to give, if it costs you your life to pursue your purpose and you die with a smile on your face, good for you.
Yeah, man.
You know, that might be controversial, but if it's your life purpose and it's expressed, fantastic. You've got joy there.
I love that.
Sorry?
I love that, having that joy bubbling through. You know, if we said, what if our purpose is to wake up and be joyful and happy and appreciate this moment? And then from there, tangibly grab onto something.
Yeah. So your purpose is probably a lot more fluid than is average, right? Which means that there's going to be other people who express the other side from you, whose purpose is to structure things and make things into very predictable patterns. And you're both approaching a purposeful life, but from two different directions. And neither is wrong. You're both looking at the same thing, because we're all going toward the same sort of purpose, which is really to be of service to ourselves in a way that serves others. And if you're serving others in a way that you feel is naturally rewarding for you, like if I do coaching, you know, I'm coaching somebody and I'm talking to them about this, that, and the other. And if I go and look at problems that I've got in my life and I can't find a solution, every single time this is true, I go through the last 5 people that I spoke to and look at the recommendations I gave them and do them, and my problem's solved. And meanwhile, I've loved the feeling of doing that work. You know, there was one point where I couldn't get out of bed, and I had hurt my back so badly, and I was in constant pain. And I realized, hang on, I've forgotten to cancel this consultation that I had booked in because I was on painkillers and so on. And I called the person to go, look, I can't really do the consult, but you know, we can talk, and then I won't charge you if you don't get any value out of it. And then for the hour that we were speaking, I completely forgot about the pain. I felt alive, you know, I felt enriched. And the person at the end said, wow, you know, no, I've got incredible value, you know, like even though you're obviously doing so well. And that's because I'm giving of the gift. It feels like it comes through me and I don't lose anything of myself, and I feel more myself after I've given that gift. And that's one of the biggest clues to giving of it. Now, to find that's a challenge. That can be difficult because, like a guy that I did some work with who he said he was a failure because he was a farmer who was terrible at farming. You know, absolutely, like I could relate to it because, you know, I can kill any plant that you give me, the easiest plant to grow, and I'll kill it by doing something stupid.
Yeah.
That's not my purpose. And it was similar with this guy. He couldn't grow anything. It was hopeless, you know. And I said, well, you know, you're working on the farm. What are you doing when you're screwing stuff up on the farm? And it's like, I don't know. I can't even think of it. And what he was actually doing, we took a bit of exploration. What he was actually doing was he was fascinated with rocks. And when he was fascinated with the rocks, the time would disappear. Everything around him would disappear. He'd feel light. He wouldn't remember anything. He would have no feeling of like, this is good or bad. It was just, this is just what I'm doing. And so because memory relies upon having a charged attitude towards something, to being rooted in time and space and having some sort of weight as to what's important to it, when you're spaceless, timeless, massless, and chargeless, when you're being on purpose, you don't remember. You don't remember, well, hang on, I'm doing this and I feel light and I feel, you know, heavy, or you don't remember any of that stuff. So basically, I had to work with him for quite some time and found out that he felt that he went into a meditative state when he was doing anything related to rock. And I turned around and said, you know, in this city that we're currently in right now, I happen to know that there's a shortage of stonemasons.
Yeah, wow.
And you can walk into an apprenticeship this afternoon, and his whole world changed.
Boom!
Like, oh, whoa. really? And I'm like, yeah,
Mm.
do you want me to make a call? And he's like, he starts crying and he's like, and I'm like, I'm dialing the number. Should I push send,
Mm.
And he's like just nodding his head, and I make the number, and they're like, yeah, send him right over. And he just got up and walked out.
Mm.
Never saw the guy again, but I heard from him, via email. And he's like, yeah, I'm a full stonemason now.
Nice.
I get to do this. I get to meditate every day.
Mm.
I get to feel this every day.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who employed him was saying to me that his work is top quality, absolutely perfection.
Yeah.
Why? Because he's a terrible farmer. That's why. So the thing that is most screwed up about him is what enabled him to discover what his purpose actually is.
Yeah, I love that.
So when I was trying to discover my purpose many, many years ago, I was researching everything about purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I consumed as much information as existed in the world at that time. This is quite a way back before the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And I just turned around and went, I can't bloody find it. Because when I was talking about purpose or working on purpose, time disappeared, space disappeared. I had no memory of how blissful I was feeling when I was studying stuff about purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So it sent into an emptiness which is glorious, and which probably makes no sense to anybody when they hear that. But imagine floating free and just feeling that freedom. That's what being on purpose feels like. So that's a big clue.
I love that word float too, just to touch on that too. One of my friends, similar to yourself, he likes to make up acronyms. So he's got one called FLOAT, which is fulfilling love, oneness, awareness, transcending. And he literally gave away everything 8 years ago, floats around the planet doing whatever he wants to at the highest point of contribution to the universe. And I like his perspective because he even goes, even if I'm deluded, I'm having the greatest time I could ever imagine. He looks younger than he did 8 years ago. He's now in his 60s. He's got less gray hair. His face looks younger because he's connected to something. And that's what I want to talk about next, that we can call a flow state protocol. We can talk about momentum. We can talk about purpose. And I think they all intertwine. And I'm curious. I want to hear what you consider momentum to be, because it's something that I'm talking a lot about. I heard you're just going to create a program called the Momentum Mail before I patent it and steal it from you. That thing
that's just like yeah.
I want to talk about momentum.
That's a daily email program where you just get that program is just a daily email program. You get a little tiny snippet each day to keep you in momentum.
We get one once a week off someone, and they charge $1,000 for a year. She just does it like 1,000 people, $1,000 a year, and it's such good value. She would do it for free. You can receive money for it. Anyway, continue on momentum, but I want to get back to that afterwards. Actually, the receiving of money around your purpose.
Yeah, okay.
But let's go to momentum first.
So the issue of receiving money around your purpose, okay. I'm going to make a note of that. So we get to that. That's really important.
Oh, for sure. Big one.
So momentum. So I'm making that thing called Momentum Mail, and so that it's on record, I said to you before, feel free to steal that. So, I would love everybody to get that stuff. And if they're getting it from you or me or both, who cares? Everybody's got a different perspective, and you need to come from it in different ways. The right person that I could work with and get massive results, if they work with somebody else, they might get terrible results. And then if somebody worked with that person, might get great results, and work with me and get terrible results. So it's all about getting a good fit. So when it comes to momentum as well, it's about getting a good fit. With the Make Money Doing What You Love program, there's an exercise that clues about their purpose. They work toward it, and they dip their toe in the water, and they take test actions. And when one of those test actions gives them results where momentum seems to come about of its own accord, like they go and they make one phone call, let's say, and suddenly that phone call turns into a whole huge project and is incredibly rewarding. Well, that's natural momentum. So you're looking for something that has even just a slight bit of natural momentum. You also want whatever it is that you're testing out, whether it's purposeful or not for you, you want to know whether it expands you as a person. So by doing this, do you feel more you? So in your case, Brock, it's like, do I feel more Brock rather than Am I trying to be less Brock for these other people? You know, like, so do I feel more me by doing this? Is there a feeling that I'm growing into something I may not know what I'm growing into, but do I just feel, yes, this is the right thing? And I don't mentally understand why it's a good idea, but it's almost as though I've always known that it's a good idea, even though I'm just testing it now. The third indicator of whether you've got good momentum or not is, do you have serendipity? And by serendipity, I mean you have a type of luck that feels like it's destined. You know, it's like, you know, I go to, like one time I was trying to get a meeting with somebody, and we just couldn't match up our schedules, you know, no matter what we did. And I was pulling away from a parking spot in the city at one point in Sydney at one point, and I just felt this desire to just wait, and I didn't know why. And then this guy pulls into a parking spot in front of me, gets out, and it's the guy I want the meeting with. And is like, you know, I had just happened to have half an hour, and it drops into your lap, and you feel as though that is how it should have been. And so you want natural momentum, natural expansion of self, and serendipity. If you follow that, if you follow those things that give you that result, you'll start to get natural momentum. And this is how people get massive results with doing this sort of work. And this is how you can get it from an authentic standpoint. Unlike how the world teaches us, which is go and do what needs to be done, and then you can be yourself on the weekend or something. You know, that's great, that's fine. Doing things that way got the world to our technological advancement. It got us to this stage where we now have the opportunity to do something else, which is find out what's right for you and try and build something from that, which is the opposite. So gratitude to the way the world has been, and gratitude for the opportunity to do it differently.
Oh, for sure.
So that's my lengthy answer to your question there.
Oh, I'm always curious. Some people answer it in 60 seconds. Some people take longer. But for me, this is what I see. You know how dolphins flow around the planet? They always know where to find each other. They don't have to mentally communicate or call each other with their phones. They just know where to find each other, kind of like the indigenous would do. They would know when one of their friends would pass away. Kind of like before we started talking, one of my friends, Daniel, who I interviewed a while ago, I just knew that something had happened that day. So I called him, and his grandmother had passed away. And I kind of feel like that, you know, when you're kind of in this groove where you kind of find your tribe and everything shows up to support your vision, your legacy, and your purpose. It feels really good. And all of a sudden, if it's not quite working, you just play in the waves for a little bit. And all of a sudden, you find your pod again and you move. And sometimes you get chased by sharks. And sometimes you're the one chasing things. I saw a little fish a while ago, and it looked like it was having the best day ever. Then I realized it was actually getting chased by a dolphin. It's the thing. I'm
sure it was very present.
Oh, definitely present. Let's talk about that too, paying attention. But first, we wanted to talk about receiving money around your purpose, because this is the thing. When things are easy for us, we're told, you know, things have to be hard and struggle and all these different things. Doesn't mean we don't go through those things to get better at our craft. But receiving money around our purpose, things that are often easy for us. I want to talk about that next.
There's a really big, they call it a work ethic, but I call it a slave ethic.
Yeah, I like that.
The idea is, you know, we work hard, we get paid, and buried in that, and it's almost like a post-hypnotic suggestion, which says, if we suffer, we get paid.
Yeah.
And fair enough. You know, sometimes in your work, there's stuff you just got to do that you don't like doing.
Sure.
You know, I personally, I hate learning new technology. I hate it with a passion. So I get somebody to come and, you know, spend 5 minutes to show me how to click a mouse or something, you know, because once I get that, I'm fine. So, but I know I've got to do that stuff. I don't feel like it's a slave type thing. Most people, though, and when I say most people, I'm not quoting studies or anything, just from experience.
87.3% of people.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm saying that most people have what I call a slave mentality, which means I get paid according to how much I've suffered. And when you approach people like this and you say, what if you set up a system which solved a major problem for 1 billion people, and you charged each person 1 cent, but you only had to do 400 hours of work to do that, and the rest of the time you could just do whatever. Would you be able to do whatever you like doing after that? Commonly, the answer is, I'd like to think I could do whatever I wanted after that, but I'd feel guilty. And I feel guilty because, I'm not suffering enough. Unless I've suffered, I don't deserve. And that's the slave mentality. So the way to break that is to indicate your own worth according, like not your internal self-worth, but your own worth in the world, to indicate that to yourself according to how much value you deliver. So if I deliver value to one person and they benefit, they increase their income by $10,000, and I feel okay about charging $1,000 for increasing their income by $10,000. Yeah, this is how I do a lot of my billing as well. Like I had a guy that came and worked with me who he actually told me later that he was paying me in consultation fees 60% of his income. And then when we had finished, he was like over the moon because now what he was paying me was 4% of his income because his income had increased.
Yeah, wow.
And it had increased so much. Right? So for me to charge him, and I charged him a lot, as you might imagine, if I'm working with somebody and they can't get measurable results, I don't feel good about it because I haven't produced value for them. I want to give people measurable results. So the thing is this: if you can give people measurable results, then you can charge 10% of the value of what they're going to get over the next 5 years or something, and feel good about it. Whereas if you're charging for suffering, then what you'll be doing is you'll be going and working with or for people that you probably hate, and probably being a resentful bastard to them, being really nasty. And, it's all a big competition as to who can be the nastiest to each other. And it's a horrible, horrible situation. Whereas most of the world, especially in the first world, we have enough to eat. We have, most of us have a roof over our head. Yeah. I mean, there are some countries with some social issues where that's not true for everybody. But, if you can just concentrate on what value do I want to deliver, what would I love to change for a group of people in the world? And if I could do that, my life would feel full. How much value is that to them? And what's 10% of that? And I'll take that very much. So if you help 1 billion people solve a major problem like getting clean drinking water, and they pay you $0.01 for that each day, you deserve to get $100 million a year, don't you? Like, that's a lot of money.
You're putting ideas in my head, man.
Yeah. A lot of people.
Two of my end results. I'll keep going.
A lot of people in third world countries pay a lot more than $0.01 a day for clean water.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're talking about how little they earn, and you might say, well, they can't afford that. Well, actually, they're paying 25 to 27 cents a day for clean water, which is a lot.
And they can't get that, they're dead, so they'll value it.
Exactly. So if you're charging them $0.01, you're a savior, and you deserve to be paid handsomely for that.
I like that element. I got 2 end results. When I see the world, a lot of people ask me, what's the vision you see, Brock? And there's so many other intricate details, but 2 things: clean air, clean water for everyone. It's almost like there's heaven on earth. If you go to China right now, you're a billionaire. You can't breathe clean air. You got to be like, there's a few spots in China, obviously you can, but the majority of places where they live, there's whole cities there that no one even lives in because there's so much affluence, so much extra wealth they need to put somewhere. But these whole vacant cities, whereas you go other areas, there's slums. I even came up with an idea the other day to sell air to China. I Googled it. People are already doing it in these little containers, like a little spray bottle. I was thinking about, like, imagine you go over there with a billionaire and you put their whole house with Daintree air. Like, it's this funny thing, like, whatever, there's so many ways to create value, but that idea of doing $0.01, I've been asking, how do we positively and measurably impact billions of lives and reinvent what be a billionaire? But I like that tangible result.
They're good questions. And, I did a lot of work with John DeMartini, and one of his great things is the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions. And you're asking really great questions. You're also bringing up another point, which is that what we in this country might take for granted, clean air, we don't value it. We don't even think about it, mostly. But for other people, that's a huge value. And so when we ourselves can produce something from our purpose, which feels effortless to us, we don't place value on it because it feels so abundant. Then we just take that to where it's not abundant. So, you know, like I say, if it rains wherever you go where people pray for rain. You know, because you don't even notice it. You may even be annoyed by it. But other people will value it. So, and it's another reason why people have trouble charging for what their purpose is, because it's so abundant to them. They think it's worthless, you know, because it's oversupply. But you just take it where there is no supply. So, you know, I had a business partner years ago talk to me about, how many books have you actually read, Peter? And I'm like, I don't know, probably 3,000, 4,000, mostly around human development, psychology, you know, all this sort of stuff. And he just said, well, you know, don't you get sick of sitting in your room reading that stuff? And there's all these other people out there who have no clue what you know, who could benefit from that. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll get off my ass, because I was quite well off at that point, sitting on my ass. So, you know, we don't value what we have in abundance. And if we do, we'll find other people that will value it, and they'll pay us. And then we can go and use that money to buy other stuff that's important to us, because we don't have that. This is how wealth is created. It's really not that complicated. You don't need to be an economics major. You don't need to be a high-level banker. And in fact, to be honest, the banking system is kind of based on nothing. It's based on lending money that doesn't exist and then justifying its existence according to the labor of other people who work to get it. Sure. But anyway, that's a whole other discussion.
That's what we're being modeled, is that control form of the world, structure and control. I think it's good to touch on it quickly, because you can do that as a coach, you can do that as a business owner, you can do everything. But then when we go, not necessarily the opposite, to say everyone's like used to putting value in a box, and then there's lies, and it's almost like a slideshow. It's almost like they're presenting this to the world. The people that are aware realize it's not truth. But even though it still goes in there, we haven't managed to change the banking system. We all are aware that the banking system's it's a slideshow. It's basically a puppet show telling people this is what's happening, but it's not actually the truth of it. That happens in so many areas. That happens in the medical industry. That happens in the banking industry. It happens with chemicals. It happens with Monsanto. The thing I want to play with at a consciousness level is, how do we make those executive level decisions? How do we, in this community that are aware, become the billionaires and stand in our power so resolutely in such a way that we can make an impact? Instead of seeing it, observing it, seeing these disasters that happen in the world, stand away and go, this will never happen again on my watch. That's not curious about, like, to be in that level of power. I used to be the cheeky level that I could drive past a cop at 160 kilometers an hour and stick my finger up. Almost like an arrogant power, you know. But now it's like, how do we do from that powerful place where there's no proving? It's just, there is a power in essence within us that we can make those high level decisions that make an impact on the planet.
Well, I reckon Buckminster Fuller had it down pat when he said that you needed to create a superior system. Don't try to wreck the old system, just create a superior system. We look at how education is going in most countries, not all. My partner is Finnish, and I often hear about the Finnish education system, which I think is extraordinary. Like, it's really something to be modeled. But the education system in a lot of other first world countries is going downhill because it's getting defunded. And I think that there's another system which can be built on top of that, which is the attitude where people can educate themselves. And ultimately what it comes down to with educating yourself is not convincing yourself about something which is fairly delusional. It's like learning something, going out and testing it in the real world. And if it works, then you accept that as being something valid. Of course, there are things that are going to be beyond your understanding, you know, like one of my neighbors is a neurologist. You know, I live in a community with some pretty extraordinary people, fairly influential people.
Yeah, wow.
One of my neighbors is a neurologist. And I mean, I could have conversations with him and try to do testing about things that I've learned, but his level of education is going to be so much more beyond me. So there's certain limitations with this whole theory of, you know, go out and test something in the real world, but certainly with philosophies and, you know, ideals and so on, it's a good method. And so what I teach people is, you know, if you want to improve your life, you do three things. First, you connect with yourself. Second, take some action on that. doesn't have to be death-defying action or risky action. It can be just some action. And then you get maybe those 3 indicators that I mentioned before about, is this a good path according to the momentum feedback that you get? And then you humbly take a look at the results that you got and go, how well did that work? Did it work? And the idea is to be humble, because so often we just want to use our confirmation bias to say, yes, I had an idea, and even though it didn't work, I'm going to trick myself into believing it worked, and then I'll do more of the same and start a religion and try and convince people to do more of what doesn't work. And it's so you have the audacity to listen to yourself, the audacity to take some action, and the humility to actually really have an honest look at what works. And I think if we do that, then people's values will be coming out. People's values, will be coming out, expressed through their values. And then, wealth is created from us all sharing our value. I don't think wealth is created from a banker saying, I'm going to take this $1 trillion and move it from the US to China, and it'll be worth 1.1 trillion, and then move it back and it'll be worth 1.2 trillion. What was actually built there that people can value? Nothing. It's just numbers. If those numbers reflect the real value that people are exchanging from each other, personally, I think, that's brilliant. That's valid. But this whole shuffling figures around and empty pieces of paper by people who've never actually produced anything of value for others, I think it's a travesty. And I found, people can change their life just by doing those 3 things. So if you don't do anything else, if you do that, then you're going to get somewhere. But the humility is the hard bit. A lot of personal development people have trouble with that. There's a lot of people out there who don't know how to be humble. And I find that's where the real power is. Not power over others, power from within yourself.
Like those examples of the kings in China, they would talk about humility, like the ancient wisdom, the masters of China, how they would sit humbly back. And then, like, my friend talks about one of the masters over there where he dropped a Besser block from 8 foot high up on a ladder onto this guy's chest while he listened to opera music, and it didn't actually even touch his chest. Things that I've experienced in the last 12 months have been doing a Qigong set with a friend and a client where it was pouring rain and none of us got wet. I've had experiences where I put my hand out and then I've said, and the rain stopped, and then the rain stopped. And having these things where we're so engaged and intimate with the universe, and I've often hidden that stuff because my whole life had been shut down for it. Every time I'd have an experience, I'd declaring that I was going to win a competition, then I would. But I think in amongst it all is when we're taking ourselves out of the equation and being of service or contribution, all of a sudden so much more shows up to support us in that. Something that I've been paying more attention to recently, which is it's interesting, man.
Well, see, people listening to what you're saying there, right? They could quite justifiably say that what you're saying is wacky.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? It's all crap. But I would say to them, well, what if you went and learned that stuff and tested it for yourself? And what if it did happen? But if you went and learned all the Qigong and you weren't able to stop the rain or whatever, or maybe it was just a coincidence that Brock had. If you're learning something that's going to have a whole lot of other benefits like Qigong does, what have you lost? So moving forward in a faithful manner, but without throwing reason to the wind, it's like follow your heart, but take your head with you. Maybe others can reproduce those results that you've produced. I mean, there's all sorts of what we might term wacky results in the world that people have achieved. I mean, for God's sake, after the Wright brothers had been flying planes for 3 years, there were the most common commentation in the US about the possibility of flight was that it was impossible. And they had already done it. Right? So, they're wacky. They're completely wacky, right? Now we fly. You just got back from the US and Europe, right? Why? Was that wacky? No, it's not wacky because we can reproduce that. So, you go and you maybe learn from something you've done, and maybe people want to come to you and go, hang on, Brock, can you give me more detail? What steps did you take? And they can try and produce it themselves. Now, if they approach it with an attitude of, this is bullshit, pardon me, I was going to try and not swear, but if this is Maybe they can't prove it, but with some like investigative faith, you can open up your life.
I like that. Investigative faith.
Because I mean, look at what things have been done in the world in the name of faith. Some of it's truly horrific, and some of it, but feet on the ground, head in the sky. That's what I say. I've got a client at the moment. We just started saying that, and this guy has literally gone from being a Cisco systems telesales guy, cold calling, hey, would you like to buy some Cisco routers, doing a job like that. Now he's like had a successful pitch with his space project to Richard Branson. So you can look him up. I think it's called Hypercubes or Launchbox. I think he's got both operations going. One is a kit that goes out to schools that teaches kids about space. So that's Launchbox and Hypercubes. These cubes, they launch them into space and they can analyze down to like a centimeter the spectrographic analysis of what's in soil and what's going on in traffic and what's going. It's amazing stuff. It's done a few months ago. He did a presentation to the Queen of the Netherlands. He was a Cisco telesales guy, and he had some, when we were working together, he was telling me, I went and spoke to these people and these people about this and that. And, they just walk away from me like I'm a complete nutcase because he's wacky. And it's like, and then I just kind of go back to my lodging at the NASA compound in Silicon Valley and do my work because the US government's paying me to do this. But apparently people call wacky.
So we want to talk about that too, we want to talk about receiving that judgment, because one of the things I think is the biggest value on the planet right now is being able to see a future that hasn't existed and bring it tangibly into the now and communicate that so we can actually execute it. I think that's one of the biggest values. I think that's where you become a billionaire. And with these people, you're going to be a billionaire, you're going to receive a fuckload more judgment. Since we're swearing right now, there we go. We've got it out right there. A bucket load more judgment. Sometimes you have to use those cuss words too, because some people judge. It's not always perfect or elegant, but that thing is sometimes we judge these particular words or these particular elements or the way that someone looks or the way that someone speaks or what they do. Kind of like when Australians go to Europe and they go, that person can't speak English perfectly, but they can speak 5 languages. Who's the stupid one? Funny what we try and judge to make ourselves feel superior. But that thing, if you're going to be in a public space, you're going to receive a lot more judgment. You're going to make those big things. So with your clients, for instance, how do you prepare yourself to go through that? And actually, I'm going to pre-frame that with one more thing, because when I started working with you, I had a house, I had a career, everything like that. And I actually put a date on leaving that house and that career. And I actually bought a van. I had 2 cars, and I was actually sleeping under the Harbour Bridge in National Park. It's one of the most free, liberating times of my life, where I'd wake up at 5 a.m. People would come by and they'd be running. I'd say good morning to me, and I'd see the harbour in this most beautiful way. And then when I was in California, there's a billionaire there who does the same thing. He loves to sleep out on the street. He loves it. So that receiving judgment seems to make us a whole lot of cash.
Well, the ability to handle it can do. I mean, we have to also entertain the idea that we might be insane. We might just be crazy. Because if you don't have that humility, you could be doing something incredibly dangerous or silly or stupid or something. I mean, doing what you were doing, which wasn't something that I actually advised you to do. I felt like I found out about it after the fact. But, it's not that I would have advised you not to. I just don't want to take responsibility for that one. But,
you didn't put in the coaching manual.
That worked for you.
I loved it.
Yeah, I didn't put in it. I'm just remembering that a mutual friend of ours came to me and said, "Why did you tell Brock to go and live on the street?" What? I didn't. Like, when did I say from a third party that you're doing that? So, and then I just said, well, the client confidentiality type thing, I'm not going to talk to you about it. But then found out that you were fine about me talking to anybody about it. And as the guy who's working with Launchbox and Hypercubes is, how do you deal with the judgment? Well, firstly, you kind of need to be big enough to hear it for a start. One of the things that I do is I'd like to evaluate where the judgment is coming from, and as an example that most people can relate to, like if I buy something online, which is got all these rave reviews and so on, I will get myself all excited about it and all of that, and then I wait a day, and the next day I go and look for as many negative reviews as I possibly can.
Yeah.
If I find negative reviews, I then look at what are the people that are putting in these negative reviews, and if it turns out that they're actually really unreasonable and they're expecting to buy a toaster and have it boil their tea or something, and they're complaining that the toaster doesn't boil their tea for them, then they're an unreasonable person. So that I dismiss the negative review, and we can do that in life as well. When I did a project where it took me a long time for the project to make money, but I ended up making a very, very nice sum of money. I had 120 people tell me that I would never make money doing that. One of them told me not to speak to them until I'd given up that idea, which took 10 years because I made a lot of money out of it. So, and I realized that all of these 120 people had never run a business before.
Yeah.
And so you've got to see where it comes from. The other thing is, if your parents are trying to talk you out of stuff, well, your parents want you to be safe. They want you to be safe, to be able to look after yourself, and to maybe have grandchildren for them, probably. So their first thing is they have a bias towards safety, which is fair enough, and you should listen to what they're saying, take it under advisement, maybe adjust what you're doing a little bit. Because the criticism and judgment that we get from the outside, it can be very helpful, but it's up to us to determine whether it's helpful or not. Yeah. If someone says, like I remember I was an exchange student to Hong Kong and China when I was a teenager. I had students in the school basically saying, "Oh, why are you coming here to waste a year of your life?" Yeah, wow. And I look back and I just go, hang on, that was one of the best things I ever did. It kicked me off on so many different things. I learned about Lao Tzu, the Tao Te Ching, and it gave me a mindset. I ran into my first real mentor and my second mentor. And then when I came back to Australia, I had this mindset where I materialized this mentor within a day of landing in Sydney, and then had mentors, uninterrupted for the next 5 years. Yeah. Because I went there. Should I have listened to those kids? No. They're terrible advisors. Ultimately, it comes down to, do these people have my best interests at heart? That's the first question. And if the answer is no, then if we're swearing, you want to just go, fuck that. I'm not listening to that. That's completely irrelevant. Second thing you want to ask is, does this person live their life from a fear-based mentality? Yeah. And that's because there are a lot of people out there. We, as a species, are herd-based. We are not. We are the worst predator in the world, but ultimately we originally were herd-based. Yeah. We follow the herd because that's the safe thing to do. And you can ask 100 people, do you think that the human race is herd-based? And they'll all go, yes. And then you'll go, okay, everybody put up their hand who thinks they're herd-based themselves. And so step outside the herd. Yeah. Why? Because ultimately they're fear-based and they don't want you to take that sort of risk. But it's up to you to decide whether the risk is worth it. It is your life. Doing what you're doing may cost you your fortune, may cost you your life, but it also can gain you enormous amounts as well. I spent 2 years at one point working. Luckily, I was working $100 an hour because I could pay rent and feed myself the $2.50 an hour I was making for 2 years. And then cut to year 3, I'm making $1,500 an hour. Yeah. Because I had a system, I had worked out what works for that business, and I had a system in place. And then cut to 2 years later, and I was making, I don't know if I even worked most days, I was still making tens of thousands of dollars in a month
Mm-hmm.
because I had the system. Whereas 120 people told me, no, you can't. You'll never make money doing that. Right? You can't be in 30 places at once to make enough money. Oh, really? Okay, I better make a system where I don't have to be there.
Yeah.
And I ended up being able to effectively replicate that at 80 places at once. Thank you very much.
Nice.
So they're the two things that I would say, you know, like, does this person have my best interests at heart? And are they coming from a fear-based mentality? And generally, you'd also, if you're doing business, you want to ask yourself, has this person done business successfully in the past? Because if they haven't, they really don't know what they're talking about. You don't want real estate advice or stock market investment advice from your neighbor. That's
what most people do, though. They go and ask Uncle Bob at the Christmas party. He's drunk, and they go and ask Uncle Bob for advice. And that's the thing, while we get the same level of reality, we go and ask stupid people for, like, we're stupid about something, so we go and ask our stupid friend about something. Not to judge people, but we all have areas of unconsciousness that I'll call stupid right now. And instead of going and seeking wise counsel, we just get cheap advice.
You know, you educate yourself as best you can. You become the expert on, if you're going to do something, become an expert on it. I became an expert on stock trading when I was 18 years old because I could read enormously quickly, and I read pretty much every book out there. I did very well from that. But then I was arrogant, and I took the money from that and I invested that in wine, which I knew nothing about. I don't even really drink. I might drink every now and then. I live in the Hunter Valley, but I don't drink wine. You know, it's a bit crazy. And so what happened there? Well, goodbye, $250,000 because I was arrogant about what I was doing. Now, if other people had been wise enough to come and warn me and said this thing, you know, Peter, you shouldn't invest in things you don't understand, I would have gone, holy shit, that is good advice. That is a principle of investment. Thank you for the reminder. You know, whereas my neighbor actually at the time, literally, it's funny that it was literally my neighbor, said, oh, how can you drink, you know, 1,500 bottles of wine?
Yeah.
And I'm like, just what? What are you talking about? So that advice is completely irrelevant, but the advice of don't invest in things you don't understand, that was relevant. And that was where I was stupid, doing something that I didn't understand.
I like that. I want to touch on the next thing that I really want to touch, because we've just got a few minutes and we've got to jump off. But that thing is, how do you trust that part of you that knows when everyone else is not on your team? You know, you think about Richard Branson, the stuff he's created in the world, everyone's telling him he can't do it, and he does it anyway. Elon Musk, the same thing. Lisa Messenger writes a magazine called The Collective. She had to give herself some space from her accountant for 90 days. Stop answering his calls and everything, and now that business is a success. And, you know, she's gone bankrupt. She might have even done that before. Who knows? She might have lost all her money, but she just keeps backing herself. What is that difference between, you know, the standard investor and the person that wants to create stability and the person that wants to change the world? And how do you know which one you are?
Well, how do you know? Unfortunately, the only real test of whether you're deluded. Can you hear me okay? Because I feel like my microphone's dropping in and out. Okay.
Yeah.
The only real way that you know whether you're right or not is the result. So be humble enough to look at the feedback. But initially, some of the good clues, because I mean, you don't want to just wait for that, because you don't want to use that as a judgment, because that comes later, unfortunately. Hindsight is easy. But one thing that you can use beforehand is you listen deeply inside yourself to what is really coming out from within you. And if it feels like there's a still silent voice in you that calms you and makes you feel reassured without you even forcing or trying, or it's just like that, without you trying to make it like that, then you know what, I need to follow this. But you take baby steps, you take it one step at a time, and you don't try to make a result happen. So it's the still quiet voice. If you I will give a bit of a plug. The Discover Your Purpose program that I've just finished creating. Hey.
Hello. Hello,
the
guest.
Discover Your Purpose program that I've just finished creating. It has, in the exercises section, it has a part about listening to your inner voice and what the parameters of that actually are. It's a one-page document, which is about 15 years of work into one page.
Nice.
You can use it as a checklist, and that'll give you the indication as to whether you should move forward or not.
I like that simplicity though, because everyone's got they've got 50 million ideas. It's almost like we've all got these ideas. I think the thing that I love that you're always doing is how do we bring it back to simplicity? A lot of people try and complicate things and make it mysterious so that you don't get it, so you'll pay for it. I'm always looking at how do we do it the opposite so that more people understand this.
Yeah. Well, ultimately it comes down to listen to yourself, take a bit of action, check in humbly and see whether it worked for you or not. And I mean, it's a very simple formula, but there are a million different ramifications and manifestations of that. And you know what? Having somebody else help you tune into that. I have two coaches. I've got a business coach and I've got a personal coach.
Yep.
Because they help me realize where I'm just completely delusional. And I don't care who you are, you've got delusions.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'd be in this game, you've got to have a healthy level of delusion to actually see something that hasn't existed and go for it. But it's also good to see your blind spots. Both, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. Well, to me, delusion is something that you can imagine which you can't make real, whereas imagination is something that you can imagine which you can make real. And as Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. He didn't say delusion was more important than knowledge, because he was working until his dying days, sitting in his hospital bed, working on his theorem, trying to work out the theory of everything, because he knew that that's not really valid unless you can bring it down to some sort of reproducible format, which can end up creating results. And that's what a lot of people in personal development struggle with. They just want to go and get reassurance from somebody that they're valid. And they are valid, but getting empty reassurance doesn't prove that. You want to prove it by doing something really beautiful and really extraordinary.
I love it, man.
Getting close to time.
Yes, final 60 seconds. Let's just say you have your chance to share, something you want to share with the world. So you have 60 seconds to share it with them. Because I'm going to say this to you guys. If you guys have made it all the way to the end of this, we've been on for about an hour. If you guys have made it all the way to the end, you've done well. A lot of people, they don't have the attentional focus. They're so distracted right now in this world of designed distractions. With all the different things just taking away our attention from this moment. So you've made it all the way to the end. So let's congratulate them. What do you
Congratulations.
Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks for listening.
And that thing is, what do we want it to be? 60 seconds you've got just to share with people, just some things, just a bit about legacy, something you just want to drop into people just to say thanks for watching till the end. So just a little bit of wisdom.
I'd say assume that you have value, that you may not necessarily know what that value is, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. That every ounce of effort that you put into discovering that value is worth a ton of results.
I like that.
And you take that what you think is your value and you try and do something in the world and get a tiny bit of result and then get a tiny bit more and a tiny bit more, and then it just snowballs, and that's where the momentum comes in and you feel like it's effortless. Exactly.
I like that, because so many times everyone thinks it's luck. Everyone thinks it's something else. It's being that purposeful every single day and deliberate about what we're creating. And the more that we do that over and over and over again, it gets better. Pleasure to have you on here today. I think we're going to have to get on and do another conversation.
Pleasure to talk to you, Brock. Okay. I didn't quite hear what you said then.
Oh, I'm just saying it's been a pleasure to have you on today. I think we'll have to do another one in maybe 3 months or so and just reignite and connect in. And
sure.
I'm just been feeling that again. I made a declaration when I got interviewed on a podcast recently. I was going to do men's work again. I've started being booked to speak to men's events. Peter and I also have led men's workshops together before and weekends away. And we'll see where we go. But it's good to reconnect with you, my man. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
And I'll see you soon.
Talking to old friends is good for the soul.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm going to put Peter's details below this so you can get in contact with him if you want to do some work with him, find out about what he does. I'm going to give him about 100 out of 10 as a recommendation right now. So, yeah, pleasure to have you here, mate. You changed my life, so appreciate it. See you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Brock.
Bye.